Welcome to Sheep Wash Barn. This is a property which has just been converted for Airbnb. We were brought into the site to look at the landscaping, and it was interesting because it was the first property that we'd done that came under the Class Q regulations. This is a relatively recent new planning law whereby you convert an agricultural building, this was a sheep wash barn, into a domestic dwelling. And initially you could just convert 3, I think it was, and now it's expanded to 10 units that you can build. As you can see from the photographs, when we started, this site looked very different. And the brief was to make it for Airbnb. So therefore we wanted to maximise the views, we wanted to give the visitors something to enjoy, we wanted to make it a very restful space, but at the same time it has to be very easy maintenance. So interestingly enough, we needed a fair bit of hard paving in order to fill that brief. And we have got some planting around the edges, and then I've gone for the baseless pots with small trees in, just to stop the whole feel of the place feeling too hard. So the number one important ingredient was the lovely little pool with the infinity edge. And I think we decided on the position to make it an infinity edge so that it really looked from inside the building with the beautiful glazed doors. It made it look like it just ran out over into the landscaping. And obviously when you're doing a pool, there are all sorts of things to consider. And one of them is the colour of the lining. And we've done so many different pools in so many different colours. We've done white, we've done black, we've done a dark olive green. Rarely does anybody want bright blue nowadays because it just looks so artificial. But this one's a nice sort of subtle grey colour. And I think that works really well because it affects the colour of the water as does the sky. And I think it makes it look inviting but still fairly natural. When we do black pools on the inside, they make it look very deep, but they can be quite, you have to be a little bit more intrepid to dive into a black pool. This one is all one length, one depth throughout, and it's about this sort of height, which seems to be the way most people are going with the pools that we're doing nowadays. They mostly seem to be one sort of height. People don't like people diving into deep ends because of the risks involved. And it's got a lovely cover which just works electronically and slides back in. Now the other thing to keep onto the pool for a moment, what's important, is the coping. Instead of using the usual traditional narrow bullnose coping that you see with a sort of very rounded edge, we've gone for something a bit more subtle to make it look more like a normal garden pool, ornamental pool. We've gone for an Indian stone, and I got them just to pencil roll the edges. So you can see they're just slightly softened on the rolled on the top. So when you're pulling yourself in and out, you don't scratch yourself, but they're not so artificial looking like a full bullnose. And we tend to do those a lot now. And I also get them to make it quite a nice thick slab. So we got these cut so they're 50mm depth. Chunky stone copings I think are so much nicer than the very thin ones. All depends on budget. Obviously a thicker coping is more expensive. So the paving generally, and we have gone for an Indian stone as I mentioned, so we went for the Indian stone. I think it's the Raj green for the paving, and we've gone for the very large 90 by 60mm slab. So we wanted a nice width of slab. And then when we've gone to the main paving areas inside, we've done this herringbone, and we've used these Indian stone stackers. And these, as you see, are there are 50, I think they're 50mm wide, 50mm deep, and 200mm long. And they've been laid with very little joint, just butt jointed as close together, and then laid in this lovely herringbone pattern. And I love this paving pattern. I think it looks really, really nice. And the colour that we went for this is mint. But as you can see, it's not a perfect sawn paving unit. It has actually been tumbled. So they're tumbled mint colour stone ones, and these work out at a very good cost. They're not hugely expensive, and they weather quite nicely. And they're obviously laid to nice gentle falls, so the water tips into the beds either side. So that's a paving. Come and have a look at the furniture. So we divided the area up. So at one end we had the eating area with the outdoor kitchen behind, which came from IKEA. And this is generous, so it can seat a decent 10 people, which is really nice. And then we've used the middle section for the sun loungers, so they look over the pool and out to the view. And then we used the far section, which is a general sort of chill out area with the lovely big sofas. Now with the planting, these are osmanthus, which are one of my favourite trees because they are very wind resistant. They've got these lovely flowers, which are quite fragrant, and it's in blossom now. And we've only just actually put the erigerons into the top because for some reason they couldn't supply them before. So we put the erigerons into the top of the pots. As I said, they're baseless, and up through the base we pulled the light fittings. And so we've subtly lit it at night with the pool being lit, and then these Luxr fittings, these lovely copper fittings, which come up and they're under each tree. So it's a very gentle light, very low voltage, so it's just subtle, but when you're sitting inside and it's dark outside, you just see a hint of the lovely landscape. It doesn't look really, really black. There are also the wall lights mounted on the columns, and also obviously with a design like this you get masses of borrowed light because the lights are on inside and it spills out into this outdoor space. These tubs, I was interested because I was slightly concerned when you first plant these baseless pots with a big specimen in them, and these osmanthus are quite large. I'm always scared that you're going to tip over in the wind before the tree roots down into the base, and that usually takes 2 or 3 months. But actually, I think for some reason this has not happened here at all. It has not been a problem. The pots I think are really nice. They're zinc. They're from a place in the garden. And if you're interested in buying some of these at a very good rate, just contact me if you're a member of the Bunny Guinness's Gardening Club, and we can be sure to get you a jolly good rate on them. And they supplied them, I think, with the bottoms out. I don't think we cut the bases out. They supplied them baseless for us. So back to the building. And as you can see, at the far end, there's an owl sitting on the end. And there's also sheep on the windows. And in case you can't guess what they're for, the owl actually scares away birds from the windows. I'm sure most of you will know that when you have a huge expanse of glass, birds can fly into it and then they either knock themselves out or they kill themselves. So the lambs help a bit on the windows, but mostly the difference is made by the owl. And that moves and makes a sound and its heads rotate. And I was surprised at how effective it is. It really does work. The static ones are not so good, but the ones that move and make the twit-twoo sound, which is probably what you've been hearing throughout, really are very effective. So the planting, as I mentioned, is very simple. We've got a very simple palette. We've used yew balls, and hopefully these will get much, much bigger. Then we've used Verbena bonariensis, and then we've used Daphne. I always think Daphne odora areomarginata, this one here, is wonderful because it's evergreen. It's just this tiny edge to the leaves, and it's got this fantastic fragrance. There goes the owl alerting the birds. Fantastic fragrance in spring. So it's lovely to have by a doorway, I think. And then we've also used Stipa gigantea, which is, this is, just bear in mind, this has only been in for 1 season. So this planting is not in any way up to its best yet. The hydrangeas in the corner look as though they have not been watered enough through this dry summer. So I must make sure that they're cut back now, the dead wood removed, and then hopefully they will get established well in this autumn period with the warm soil, and then they will zoom back next year. Those look the worst. The ones on that corner look much better. In order to get a lot of structure in winter, we've done this patterning in bands with the yew scalloping 1, 2, 3 along there, and that will be kept as a dwarf head. So that will be kept about the height it is now. It needs a clip to sharpen it up. So the Salvia anistad has gone mad, and then next to it we've got my favourite rose, Rosa mutabilis, and I just think the way the roses, the blooms of that rose change is lovely. That will come up to the height of the wall probably. You see it's still in flower now. I think it is one of the longest flowering roses ever. And it's done well despite this dry summer here, and next to it will do a lot better. Lavender Hidcote as good as ever. It's flowering very late. We need to make sure that we cut it back fairly soon as they start to die back. Digitalis lutea. Now I can only see one of these, but I probably specified about 15 of these in here, but it will self-seed. It's a perennial foxglove. I love it. And I see there's a gap here, and I must find out what was in here because I will not have left a gap like that. So I'll check on the plan and then make sure we fill in something there. I think I'll probably go for the Erigerons again because I think they are very nice and they'll just fill low ground cover here. So my Dave did all the planting here, and so, as it's quite local to us. And that's the main planting palette, really. We've got some Gara there, which is always wonderful, more yew balls, and we've pretty much repeated the same sort of thing over on the other side. So they're all plants which do well, that are quite easy. I have put in some short-term fillers, of which I can't see any on this side, but I see there's some Hesperus metronalis, which is a wonderful biennial, which will seed around and fill in gaps. So here again, we've repeated planting Stipa gigantea. Now that I find Stipa gets really into its stride a couple of years down the line. So I can see these will really fill out the space. And these Hesperus are looking good here. I love these. They smell so nice, sweet rocket. Is it Dame's Violet, I think is another name. Wonderful plant, and the Gara is obviously very good as well. And a bit more lavender there. So you can see it's nice, it's due south facing, which is fabulous. So even I think on a winter's day, you would actually come out here and you would probably use the pool if you're a hardy sort because it is heated. And I think the space has come out really well. I'm really pleased with it. I always think it's fascinating when you start to play with outdoor spaces. And I think dividing it into 3 has worked quite well. There's one ingredient yet to come, which I think will really make it work fantastically. And I would love to put some sheep, just a handful of sheep into that field. So they'd be like animated sculpture. They wouldn't be able to get up in here because we've put the ha-ha along the edge. And that, I think, is key to it. So instead of having any fence at the end of the garden, we've just done a short drop. And that wasn't there initially, but it's very easy to just dig out a slight trough. And then it looks as though the garden just runs into the landscaping. And that, I think, is what really makes it work. And when you then have some sheep in the landscaping too, I think it will just be amazing. This is the elevation of Sheepwash that greets you as you arrive. So it's a lovely nondescript farm building that just sits into the amazing countryside. The fencing detail, estate fencing, kept it very simple, but we've just sort of elevated a little bit with the rather sort of more grand oak posts with the pointy tops. Come and have a look at the front. So there wasn't any vegetation here when we started, apart from the one tree, which is magnificent. And what we did find, though, which was very exciting, was these lovely troughs within the old barn itself. So I think, we managed to get 5. And so what we've done, which I often do with pots or with urns, is we've just elevated them by raising them up on little bits of brick. I just think you notice them a lot more. They're all actually slightly different, but they're just nice troughs with the riveted sides. And we filled them with Gara and a bit of Stipa. And then we've also put in these lovely multi-stem crab apples. Now I think these are wonderful. We didn't want anything too exotic looking because it's in the country. So we've kept everything quite low key, and we have put some planting in the gravel. There should be quite a bit more, but we've put in the Verbascum bombiciferum arctic polar summer, and we put in some grasses, and they will seed and spread. So hopefully in a couple of years' time we'll have a lot more in this gravel here. And we've used the U to divide the front up because it's a very linear building. So we thought we'd just put buttresses, sort of big buttresses of yew, and cut them into solid clip bits along the front, just to divide up this massive length of it. We had hoped to put beautiful espalier pear trees on the front of the building, but there's some stonework there, and it would have meant they would have become about 1.5 meters off the front, which we couldn't penetrate. So we haven't got any climbers up there as yet. Now, you can imagine that we're open in the countryside. You can see all the woods and fields and hedges around, and you can guess exactly what comes to feast off all the vegetation here. It's deer, and deer are everywhere at the moment. The numbers have really increased massively, and deer love yew, taxus, and they love nibbling roses and things like this. And this element of the planting is much more exposed than the bit behind. And so what we've done here is we actually sprayed it with something called Trico, which is based on I think it's based on sheep fat or something, and it's a fairly new product. And we sprayed it, and it seemed to have worked quite well. And so that's useful to know, because it's quite difficult. Once you start fencing areas of planting like this, you know, it just looks like a barricade to make it successful, and it's very expensive. But hopefully, once the yew gets going, I think then if the deer do come down to have the odd munch of it in a couple of years, it actually won't really matter very much. And this is the driveway. So you arrive, you come along, drop your bags off, and then you go and park over there. And so what I've done is we've just actually got two different types of gravel. We've got a more coarse road gravel, and then we've got the finer gravel in this bit where we want everything to set seed. And that's just a simple way to divide it. And as you can see, that trough's a bit wonky, but I think that's so nice that there's something from the site that we've reused. Come and have a look inside. Obviously, the inside has changed an awful lot from when we first came to the site, but the openings are pretty much what they were. And now we've got the glass, and that obviously is fantastic because the whole view floods into this brilliant space. And this is obviously the main living area. I love the wood burning, so how it goes up through the roof and the way they've stored the logs underneath. I love the sofa arrangement and the ottoman, all beautifully done with the little wooden stools, and then the table and the eating area and the cooking area. And I think this is superb. Please excuse the washing up. There's a party here on Friday night, and so, but you can see how it works. It's just a wonderful stainless steel unit with a sink, a hob, and then you've got the ovens and all the storage units. I mean, what more could you want, whether you're Raymond Blanc or a heater upper? It's just an amazing kitchen. Now look at the bedrooms. I think it's quite nice the way they've got natural green touches inside, which links beautifully with those outside. When you lie in bed in the master bedroom, you have beautiful rolling views with the crabapple in the front and the troughs up to the beautiful Rutland landscape. And then on this side, and this side, you look out to the lovely courtyard with the osmanthus to give you a wee bit of privacy. This must be the perfect bathroom. What a beautiful bathtub. And the whole arrangement with the basins is fabulous, really, really fabulous. I had nothing to do with the insides. My bathroom looks very different from this. I think the doors, the interior doors are beautiful, really nicely done, beautiful ironwork, and this sort of finish along the front, beautiful. Even Mrs. Hinch would love a cleaning room like this. I love the wall finish, which they've done everywhere. It's like just a slightly rough plaster, and it's a beautiful effect. My grandchildren would love a room like this. And what a view! Everywhere, the view, stunning. And the family shower room, I think, is completely stunning. Towel rail, even the towel rail looks wonderful. I love these sort of window seats, and the Salvia Amistad looks amazing. And this is the third bedroom. And here again, we've got some of the brickwork left, the original brickwork left, which is wonderful. And then it goes with this lovely sort of rust plaster effect. This is the entrance to the property, and as it's along a little country lane, I didn't want to make it a very grand entrance, so we kept it pretty simple. We just put the chunky oak posts, which are 200 square, the finials on top, and then the estate fencing, which we've used everywhere. The clever thing is the automatic gates, and because power doesn't come in this way, and it would have cost a lot of money to bring electricity down here, they're all run on solar.